Hi, everyone, and welcome to Mom Your Own Way. I'm Lily Coco, and today with me I have Rachel Amidei, who's not only a writer, musician, producer, worship leader, but she's also a mom. And today we're going to talk about not only her motherhood journey and her whole story as an individual, but also we're going to discuss kids, technology, and kind of how those are really intertwined in today's culture. So let's just start and get right into it. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Rachel Amidei.
You say it correctly, so that's a win.
Yes, I needed a win today. My
Yeah.
daughter wasn't getting into her nap, and so I felt. I know I shouldn't, but I already took on the mom guilt of I couldn't get my child in a nap on time, and so I feel like not a good mom. But I know I'm all right. I know everything's all right, and I just need to let it go. But I needed a little win to start this
You know,
podcast.
I get you, but believe me, be like, how many kids do you have? Is this the first one?
It's
This is
my
it. Yeah.
first, so
Oh yeah.
I'm.
Kid number two, you're gonna be like, are you asleep? I don't know. Whatever. You're gonna be in there for a while. Have fun. Bye.
You'll figure it out. If you get tired enough, you'll fall asleep. This
You
will
know,
teach you.
it helps create intelligent children to let them entertain themselves a little bit. So okay, you're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. I'm trying to teach her, not trying, I am teaching her, and she's really teaching herself how to be independent. But it's more so been a teaching, learning journey for me, how to let go, because I want to make sure she's safe and protected and having a good time and all of her needs are met and all of this and na. Like, I might as well just bake her cake, put her in it, and let her eat all around it, and just like have her balloons. And like, I know I am like that, and I know I need to let go of that idea of always being there and all. But I'm learning to let go slowly but surely. And there are certain moments that kind of happen that I feel God's talking to me, and he's just like, today's the day you can let go of this piece. And I just feel at certain times like, oh, today I can let other people watch her. Today I can let her go to sleep on her own. Today I can. It's such a trippy journey.
It's hard. I just think it's straight up difficult. And it doesn't really get any easier as they get older. It actually gets harder because the things
Yeah.
you're having to let go of are freedoms and responsibilities that are more dangerous, and more
Mm,
difficult. And so, I mean, I have a just turned 14-year-old boy and I have a
mm,
7-year-old girl. And with my boy, I feel like God's telling me that every day, let go, let go, let go, let me have him. Let me do this
mm.
now,
Wow.
especially as they get to the place where they're not as interested in hearing your opinion and taking it in as, and
I'm
it's
not
like,
emotionally
oh
ready for that.
no. Yeah, you
I'm
have to.
not. I can't even imagine her saying, "No, I don't want to listen to that, mom," or "You're wrong, mom. I'm not ready. It already hurts."
Oh, it's really difficult, but it's interesting. God's taken me through an interesting path where I was forced to do that. And let go. And I've watched while some things didn't go great. I have seen how faithful God has been to my kids, and I have seen um, growth anyways,
Mm.
So I just think it is good at some point to just tell yourself, yeah, let go. Every once in a while, you have to let them be independent. You have to let them do things on their own. As they get older, you have to give up more ground. Otherwise, what you end up doing is you create little monsters, to be honest.
Mm.
Kids that don't know how to do anything on their own. And believe me, that is the last thing you want. You do not want to be babying your 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12. You want them to have that independence. So, but
Yeah.
it's hard. It's just hard.
It's hard. I've been like better at it. I think I do a better job at the physicality of it. So I let her explore the kitchen and the bathroom, and I let her jump heights, and because then she kind of learns on her own that way. But certain emotional needs, it's almost like I kind of need her in a way. And so I'm in the morning, I'll even pray, like, okay, God, how do I serve you today? Because before I've been so focused on, like, okay, God, help me with this, help me with that, kind of asking God to help me with my agenda. Whereas recently I had this turn where I was like, that needs to stop. I need to ask God how is that I can be of service to Him and be a vehicle of service, because I've been handed this kind of opportunity and this honor to raise, his daughter as well. So it's like,
Right.
okay, right now it's my time to take care of her and help her with all of her needs. And now that she's walking, I'm like, okay, go and explore. I've let go of always carrying her. But the emotional aspect of like, kind of like you said, okay, came to that time that you understood that you have to let go of your baby boy, and I'm excited to actually hear that story. But I know I have to do that. I'm always already worried about it. I know I should just, pray about it instead of worry about it. But it is something that's occupying space in my head where I'm like, how do I emotionally let go and say,
Right. That's
grow on your own?
I don't know. I think it's appropriate with how young your little one is to feel that way though. I mean, there's supposed to be that mom-kid connection, right? And you feel things. You have this intuition and this sense and you don't even understand that until you become a mother, right? This intuitive thing that happens where you
Yeah.
know your kid and you know your kid better than other people do and you better know that you know that because other people will come along and try to push you into doing things or say things that your kid needs or doesn't need that they don't. And I think mom's intuition is one of the great gifts. That's one of the greatest things on the planet Earth, right? So I think it's okay for a little while to have that really that like, no, I'm going to spend time with my child,
Yeah.
connection. But like you said, if you are putting God first and if you're asking him what he wants of you, then you're going to be doing this in a healthy way. And I love that Bible verse that says, raise up a child in the way they should go, because
Mm.
it really implies you shouldn't be raising yourself. You're not raising someone that's just like you. You've been given a life it's unique. It's its own. It's not your children are not an extension of you. We can't see our children that way. They're independent
Well,
beings. And so we need to raise them the way they were created, not the way we were created. And so both my kids are really different personality wise. And I've noticed that the things that were effective for my son are not necessarily effective with my daughter. And that verse really came to mind of just like, she's different. She is a unique being and she has unique needs. And so I have to parent her differently, actually, than I
yeah.
parented my son. And that's okay. That's actually how God set it up. I think it'd be really boring if we had children that were just like us. So I just love that concept of just asking God because you need help with that.
I love that verse. I love that saying. I think I've known it like in my mind mentally that like of course every kid is different and of course everyone does things differently, but there's been this, because I've been looking at this motherhood relationship that I have with my daughter. It's kind of like she's teaching a lot about myself, and I've actually been able to heal a lot of like past trauma and my own relationship with my mom and her parents, whatever. And certain things that I do, I know I do, now that I think about it, I know that I do them because I want to do things different that were done to me. And now I don't want to do it that way because I'm only doing them to make sure she doesn't feel how I felt. But I should be raising her, attending to her needs, which I am. But I think in one way I am, like you said, parenting myself almost, which
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
fair.
We all do that though, because we all have those triggers. Yeah. Like I have triggers from my childhood, and those triggers cause us to swing the pendulum the other direction. And, so those things, I think, just like you want to go into a marriage whole and ready,
Yeah.
you definitely want to go into parenting as much as possible whole and ready so that the things that normally would trigger you, maybe you're able to objectively look at them and say, no, that's my trigger because of my past. Maybe though, instead of swinging the pendulum the opposite direction, there's a healthy middle or a healthy balance where, I'm not so afraid just because, my parent made this mistake or this happened to me when I was
Yeah.
young. Yeah.
I love that so much. I was trying to spend a lot of time clearing all my demons that I had within. Like I mentioned, I had like the trauma, the stuff that happened before, and right before I got pregnant, there was something that happened. I stopped drinking. I was working out. I got more connected to God, and then when I got pregnant, I mean, I got really close to God, and things just really made sense. And I somehow just started a journey of trying to clear myself because I didn't want to put any pressure on my child that I wasn't ready to deal with, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want to pass on some sort of a stress or a thing just because it's something that I carried. I didn't want her to carry it in any way. And so I was trying to heal myself, and that process kind of started, now that I think about, even prior to. And I think it was just God stepping in saying, hey, let me get you ready for some of these steps. And I'm still, like I said, I'm still learning every day where I'm like, oh, this is a trigger and I'm responding to my own idea, my own thing in here, but I'm deflecting it almost, whether it be on my husband or on my child, and I'm making sure that they don't feel a certain way.
Right.
That's
You're
honestly
like
my
1,000 steps
responsibility.
ahead of most people. I mean, I wasn't there with my first when he was little. I was like not that self-aware at all. And I was a good mom. I was a present mom. I loved him. I adored him, but I was not working on some of those triggers. I had not thought about how I was parented growing up was going to affect my parenting style, and even in my marriage, like, man, there, it was just a mess. So good for you. I feel like you're like 1,000 steps ahead of where other people are at.
I'll take the compliment because I'm just learning to just take compliments instead of deflecting and saying other things. I'm just going to say thank you, and I will humble down. But
Very
I want
good.
to know, it's all a learning process. I feel like each time I have like a podcast, it's my own therapy session that I just like go through. But I want to hear, at least that's if I wasn't learning, then it'd be a whole, what's the point here? But I want to know about your mother. I want to know about you. You're so interesting to me. I'm so like infatuated by you now because you just seem, you're very eloquent and you very well put together, which makes me think the things that you're talking about, you have like, you feel very confident in them and you believe them through your heart. It's not just like, whatever. This is something that you truly believe in the way that you, like, it's very genuine and authentic. And I love the things that you're saying, but I want to know, how did you get here? What is your story? And I want to know about how it was with your first versus now your second.
So yeah, my I am now in my second marriage. Luckily, been married 8 years to a very good man, and we have a good marriage. My firstborn is from my first marriage. I got married pretty young. I don't know how old you are, but I got married when I was 20 to high school sweetheart. I'd grown up in Christianity, American Christianity. I know it backwards and forwards because I went to Christian school from kindergarten through high school. So many of the Bible teachers I had were seminary professors. I mean, I was embedded in that. And I really felt like I did meet God as a child, and I kind of had a passion for the Lord as a child, but lots of trauma, lots of stuff happened in my teens and threw me way off. I did a lot of things wrong. I really did. God let me get like kind of the worst. He let me have the 2x4. And I look back and I realized that it was only in that crushing that I was going to let go of my old version of things, my old worldview, my old filter, and actually seek, like, be humble enough to not take my preconceived notions of who God was into my future, and to let him reform who he was in my life, to let him forgive me, to get rid of my pride, to recognize that I am just as dark a person as and everybody else. We all are capable of darkness. And until you face that, I actually don't believe you can be a good parent until you face your own darkness. You have got to face the fact that you have darkness in you, that you are capable of evil, that you are capable of doing the wrong thing, because that it almost frees you to say, you know what? I know I have a choice. This isn't, me escaping and oops, it happened. Every moment is a choice. You have the choice to do the right thing or the wrong thing. There is a path there. And I think people just do life. They just go about doing life, go about parenting, and they're not thinking. They're not really thinking about the impact. They're not really thinking about what this means. They're not thinking about when you experience your own darkness too. I think this might be a good segue into something else you brought up. But when you face your own darkness and you realize how destructive dark things are, you really see technology and media differently. And you really care about what you put in your mind and what you put in your kids' minds and what you're allowing your family to, like, ideologically to be exposed to.
Because it all starts growing. They're all little seeds. Something I was quickly going to mention, but you mentioned that pressure. There's like that saying where diamonds are made under pressure. That's the only way to make a diamond. If not, we're just all kind of rocks sitting there and we can't shine. We can't help others. We can't do and shine like God wants us to. And so sometimes this pressure is kind of applied. So then we finally crack and say, oh my gosh, I've been so blind, because constantly we're fed, like you're saying with the technology, we're fed with this information, this culture idea, this society expectation of how things should be. Whether it's going to school, the college, the marriage, the thing, there's like all these steps, this picture that's kind of painted for you that you're supposed to follow along. And so we just kind of go and do it. And then we complain about the things that are the external things. We share about them, which is so weird because now we share about them really openly on social media and for everybody to see and for everybody to kind of exploit anything. But we're kind of consumed in that, but not necessarily looking within our home and what's happening in our home, which is, I'm very passionate about parenting because, certain things happen. I want to make sure, like, I just have this belief that, like, parents are so important and crucial in kids' lives because until the age of 3, they learn so much and absorb it all in. If there's fights, if there's conversations, how the mom and dad treat each other, what do the words say when the other person's not in the room? They just take it all in and then mimic it in their own certain way. And then you see them grow. And if you're not attentive to it, it's like, well, why is my kid doing that? It's like, oh, why is my kid yelling? I'm yelling at them. It's like, well, why do you think they're, like those things start appearing, but we don't take the time to sit and actually like work it through and get down to the why. And it's because we're so busy now. It's this whole culture of like moms and dads should work. Everybody's working. Put your kids in daycare so everybody can work. And then you're so busy working. All you want to do when you get home is decompress, which is what TV, social media, just scroll through pointlessly just so you can let go of the day and then the day's over. But we miss the breakfast, lunch, and dinner conversation of just like, well, how was your day? Well, what happened? How did you handle it? What could have we done differently? How can I support you in this need? And just being there, being so present, because our time is limited now. Our time is not occupied. That's what all the social medias are fighting for. The TikTok, the Facebook. It's like, well, how much time is everybody spending on our app? How do we get more of their time?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
If that time is occupied by strangers. Our time is occupied by strangers.
Yeah. You are there's a great Bible teacher that I love. And one thing that he said, and it really resonated with me, is he said, I have these parents who come to me and they're just so shocked at the choices their children are making as teenagers. And they're doing all these things that are against scripture. And, and they'll say, well, I didn't raise my kid to do this. And he'll ask, well, how much media do they have? How much, time do they spend on social media? How much time have they been spending watching TV, all that? And inevitably, it's plenty of time. It's the same time as everyone else. And he said, well, yes, you did raise your child to think that way. When you let media raise your children, you are not raising your children. And when we let media educate us, we're not giving time to the Lord to educate us. That's something that I think has been revealed to me a lot lately is we are all escape artists. For some odd reason in this culture, we are all so desperate to get online and to escape our actual physical reality. And I have no idea what that is. I don't know if it's the addiction of blue light itself. There's a lot of theories behind that. I don't know if it's because we just don't want to face like I said, it's a lot of work to face your own darkness and to realize your children have darkness too. And to go, okay, we're going to deal with that. We have to deal with that. My children are not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to screw up. They're going to shock me with their horrible behavior. And I got to be ready for that. All of that stuff, that takes emotional energy. And it's almost like we've become lazy. We're either overworked or we're lazy. I'm not sure what it is. But both, probably both. But
I think there's a difference of like physical activity and emotional activity.
Yes.
And although being attentive to your kid isn't necessarily physically demanding, it is very emotionally demanding. So you can feel really drained only after 15 minutes instead of doing it for 8 hours. And so it just then comes down to like how much time do we have to spend on certain physical needs or emotional needs within our family. And I think with social media, they made it so easy to feel validated with anything, whether it's your status of how you're feeling right now, or this picture you took, or this video you created, or whatever it might be. And instead of getting the validation that I think we should get from our parents, from our family, knowing that like, hey, my mom and dad are proud of me. I'm proud of me. I know God is looking down. He's proud of the choices I'm making. Instead of that, right now, it's how many notifications did I get? And now we're almost addicted to that notification scroller on your phone that's going off.
And the wrong things are popular, right? The more sexual the
Man,
post, the more popular the post, the more, I
yeah,
mean, this is a disaster. And if you think about it from that perspective, again, you're just training kids, you're training yourself and you're training kids to value the wrong things. I mean, the doing the right thing matters whether it's in front of people or not. But the problem
yeah,
is so much of what's in front of people that is validated and loved is not the right thing. And so we are, and then we don't have the time to okay, we don't have the time to raise our kids right, and we don't have the time to undo the damage that we're allowing them to be exposed to. That we have just added a burden in our parenting world that I don't think we really comprehended. It was already hard to raise good people. Now we have to undo trauma from social media exposure and from pornography exposure and from violence, just the violence in television
yeah,
programming. How many murders do we have to watch before we think, maybe we're just like the Romans in the Colosseum? They were entertained by real murders. We're entertained by fake murders. Is it what the only difference is, it's not a real murder, but to your brain, it is.
yeah,
So
yeah.
aren't we just as desensitized as they are? And isn't that some of the problem that we're seeing in culture? So I think we have a huge problem with raising children and with media because it is biased, and it is not biased for the family, for godly things. It is biased against those things.
Wants the
And
drama, it wants the family
yeah,
unit divided, it wants
yeah.
that hypeness, it wants the chaos. I don't think we're prepared because as much as I'm just thinking about myself, how would that conversation look like with my daughter? And because I haven't really thought about it, it hasn't been taught to anybody of how to unlearn those things besides it just not being exposed to them. It's like having those conversations because the media kind of exploded within the last, I want to say 10 years, but probably even before that. Like our parents' generation really got affected. It was so new to them. They didn't even know that
Right.
there's bad things or good thing, or however you want to look at it. But then slowly, I think within this generation, more outlets, people are starting to see the evil that's behind it and starting to unwrap it a little bit. But just acknowledging it is a great step towards it. But I don't know if there's been yet a step of what you're talking about. How do we, now that we know that, what do we do with this now? How do we bring this new knowledge into our families and explain to our kids and to our spouses and to ourselves, hey, yes, I saw that. Yes, that was entertaining, but was that the right thing? How do you actually feel about it? Is this like and just sit down and have those conversations. I don't know if that's been even on the radar.
I don't know if it certainly has been for us. We talk about it a lot. We know a lot of people and have, in my music world, I've done a lot of benefit shows for anti-sexual trafficking organizations, people that help people get out of these industries and get out of slavery, basically. And so I became aware of some of the issues specifically with social media and technology and the trafficking piece a while ago. And so, with my oldest, I've had a lot of conversations just educating him. But one thing that I think has been really significant in our lives and in our family lives, and something, so I'm finishing up a book. I've been writing about the church in America and the Western church for a while now, and it's finally done. And
You're
one,
such an amazing person. I'm like
oh,
in awe of you. I'm in awe of you. I want to have you on every single day and just talk to you and learn more things that you have to say.
you're really
But
sweet.
go on. No, I'm just like, wow.
I no, this is all God's. This is all God's. Like I said,
But
I've
it's
I've
your work of like letting
I've
him work through and using you as a vehicle, like to fully surrender in a trust fall without someone actually being there to catch you. That is faith. That is full faith that you're trusting God and saying, I will surrender fully to you and you will use me for these benefits to help other people. Like that's just so beautiful to me.
yeah. Thank you. I feel like God's kind of put all of us in that position with COVID, with the lockdowns and everything.
Yeah.
Haven't we, like those of us who understand the Bible a little bit and who understand God, with people losing their jobs, everything. I mean, my husband and I lost so much. And it's just like, God's been faithful. He will continue to be faithful. His plan is better than ours. He knows what's going
Yeah.
on. And it's, the fear is what wrecks your decision making skills and all of that, right? So you just got to let go of
Yeah.
that fear. But I was going to say one thing, and even with COVID, this was a big deal. One thing that's really changed our family, but also has been really revealing to us, is taking an actual Sabbath, being biblically accurate and saying the Sabbath day God designated. He said, rest from your regular work. He said, take that day and make it different than other days. And so we take a Sabbath every week. The Sabbath, remember, was made for us. We need that rest. We need that mental rest. We need that spiritual renewal. Taking that day and taking technology out of it, not getting on social media as much, not watching television, not letting the kids have access to that. Like, we're going to have family time. We're going to do devotions. We're going to go to church. We're going to, all of that. That just being obedient in that piece has changed our family life, but it's also been really revealing because it shows how much you want. Like, if you can't take a 24-hour period off from social media, you might have a problem, right?
I think that's an addiction thing. I've heard that if you can't if you can't do dinner without drinking just one glass of wine, if you have to have a second drink, then it could be considered an addiction where you can't just stop after a little bit. You have to feel like you keep going, and that's, at that point, it's already considered an addiction.
It's exactly that. And it's kind of this proof that God gave us to say, do you really think I'm God? To not work on that day and to give up these other things. If you're not willing to do that, do not have me on the throne of your heart. You have something else there, because it's God who provides, right? It's not us. The second you give up that day and you stop working and you stop spinning your wheels and you let God take over, you are proving to yourself and to the spiritual world and to your physical world, you have God on the throne in your heart. And so it becomes this incredible sign and testimony of who you serve. But it also is it's a trust exercise, right? Yeah. It's that life will continue even if I take a complete 24-hour break. He's got it. And I do trust him.
Wow. I was, the way you described it, I'm picturing, like the social media and having the chains on us because we're so addicted to it. It's like we're the slave to it. So we constantly have to go back and make sure we're updating everyone on what we're doing. And this is now we're posting this. And now we have to comment on this and reply to this. And we're constantly just going back and making sure that all of it's updated. Whereas delegating deliberately a day to say, I choose God and I trust him that everything will be fine, because it will. Everything will it's fine. But we're there's that, I guess, fear that something will happen if you don't reply fast enough, or if you don't do, I don't know where it comes from.
I think we're just a lot more addicted than we think. I struggle with it for sure. I struggle to not go to my phone on that day, and I don't always do it perfectly. And I go, I got to work on this. I need to put that boundary up, because it's not only good for me, but again, it's that example to your kids. I mean, it's amazing the types of conversations you get to have with your kids when they're like, why don't we get to do this on this day? But that becomes the opportunity, the teaching opportunity in the moment to say, no, you know what? We're not going to watch that today. But if you want to watch something, let's watch a teaching from one of our favorite teachers and let's talk about it. Or let's sit down, let's read a Bible verse together, or let's just play a game as a family. Like, let's designate this to be a separate day. We can have fun. Let's have family time. I mean, it's just supposed to be a day of rest, right? Yeah. So it becomes this, but it just keeping that every single week has changed things so much in my life and in our family life. And I think it's the first step. If you believe in God and you believe in the God of the Bible, go to Exodus 20, read about this thing. It says it's a sign forever between God and his people. Forever in the Hebrew does mean forever. It's the word for always. So we are supposed to be keeping the Sabbath day as his people. And it's for these reasons. And I have found that keeping that day, it's almost, it turned around. So I'm a musician, by the way, and God asked me years ago to keep the Sabbath day in the Bible, which is Friday evening to Saturday evening. And I have to tell you, especially when I didn't have a lot of money, time. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, I don't think so. This is when I make my
prime
money.
Time.
Yeah. This is prime time for me. And God was like, well, and so he worked on it,
What a choice to make for God, specifically to know that, like, don't you think I know that Friday is,
Right.
he's asking you to make that choice to say, I am committed to you, God, in his.
Exactly. He knew what he was asking, but I was
Yeah.
appalled. I was fairly appalled at the very beginning. But then when I started doing it, what is so interesting is I didn't lose money. I don't know how. I can't tell you how. I didn't lose money. And I had other gigs start coming up and midweek stuff and other opportunities and more producing opportunities, whatever. God took care of me. And I thought, he is so good. He does not, like, you take a step towards him, he's meeting you. He's going to meet you. And I think, again, just that first step, that was kind of the first thing that was outside of what my norm had been growing up in American Christianity. That was like the first thing that I learned, where I was like, man, if we really kept the Bible, if we really looked to God as he is in scripture, it does change your life. It changed my life. My life is different now because I've been keeping the Sabbath now for 5 or 6 years. My life is different, and it's different for the better. That, like, instead of being burdened by losing that day of work, I now look forward to that day every week. It's my favorite day of the week. And I feel like if I don't get to keep it the way, like, I feel like he's calling me to, I feel the chaos in my mind that week. Like, we are made for this. Like, this day is for our benefit. It's a blessing. I mean, think about what other God, what other taskmaster is excited to give you a day off? When is social media encouraging you to take a day off? When is your boss, like, super excited that you're not working that day and making them money? Only a good father gives you rest. And that's for us. And so I think for us, like, for my parenting, for my sanity, for technology, for all of those things, just that one thing has changed so much for us.
I love that. You know what it made me think of is, I'm just reflecting back, and there's these certain moments that I have with my daughter when her and I just kind of look at each other and everything around just kind of stops. We're just so present and we're in tune, and there's no distractions. And it could be, she's playing, we're playing a game, we're going through the book. She's got this little Bible that we read, and she likes all the animals in it, but we're just really present. And I know, and I feel it in my heart, that this is the bonding that's making us grow stronger. And if then taking that relationship and applying it to God, because God is our Father. So it's like, how do you get close to your Father? You spend time with it. You put everything down and you spend time with God, and you allow him to take the day saying, hey, today we're going to go to the park and just listen, hang out on the swings. And you're like, okay. And through that relationship, that bonding relationship with our Father, we can strengthen our family and the relationship we have with our kids. Because they're going to look back on these days and remember, Monday, Thursday, we're busy, we were running around, all of this. But hey, Friday, Saturday were my favorite, because I got to just spend so much time with mom and dad. And we just talked about my pink shoes, and that was really cool because they were just so there, instead of like looking at the phone or trying to get to the email or thinking you're late or this. It just, I think about, like, our phones constantly need to be charged, like, oh, phone needs to be charged or they don't work. And I think about it in human form, like, of course we need to be charged. Sometimes you just need to go and take a shower. Sometimes you just need to recharge. But God is providing us and telling us, hey, I'm literally giving you a special day to make sure you show up. Kind of like parent rights, where it's like, this is my day. Why would you go and work on the day you're supposed to spend with me? It's almost like a slap in God's face saying, like, you're not worthy of my time. I would rather be spending it doing something else.
It totally is. I have a dear friend who said he views the Sabbath as it's like family dinner, and God sets the table and he's set a meal, and he looks down the line, and when he doesn't see you there, so there's this part of it that says, when you're not keeping the Sabbath, you're cut off from your people. And it's a consequence of not keeping the Sabbath. And if you think about it in that light of sitting at a dinner table with your family, you cut yourself off from your people, right? When you don't show up, you're not with your family that day. And I'm trying to teach my kids, and God help us, even the people in the Bible had children who were wayward. And so I pray both my children just love the Lord and follow him all their lives. But I'm trying to teach them that if you plug yourself into God's family, that you have that stability, that you have that place that's always home. And if if you're plugged into the Lord, like you talked about, if that's where you're getting your energy from, you can face the storms of this life. It's gonna be okay. You really do have a rock. It is so different than relying on anything else. And I've gotten to experience that personally just because of all the wreckage I personally have caused in my own life. But I don't want my kids to have to experience it that way. So I
Yeah.
feel like teaching them, doing these times that God has said, these are mine and we're going to do them every week. If you want to know me, do them every week. That through those, hopefully my kids will learn a lot of the things that I haven't learned until I started keeping those things and doing those things. And it becomes this extension. Like if God's where you get your energy, his family becomes, it extends into your family. And we need
Yeah.
that. We need that because culture is hard right now. And it is
Yeah.
not easy to raise kids. And think of the statistics of like when children are exposed to traumatic material and pornography, it's like between the ages of 8 and 11.
I
That's
was
insane.
introduced to it really early, really early.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't even
think
know
about
how.
that.
It's so much more available now. I mean, I'm 30, so this was like 20 years ago. So now it's at a click of a button. It's really scary. It's really scary, and it's even more acceptable now, which is weird because before it's like, hey, you don't know who you're talking to, don't talk to strangers online. But then now with like people who drive food delivery or Uber, we're expected to just get in those cars and open the doors for those strangers, and we're
That's
inviting
true.
strangers in. I know, it's so weird. I feel so, anytime anyone delivers food to our door, I make sure they know my husband's home, my dog is barking really loud. I'm like, I want to show up with guns, just be like, oh, you're just bringing cheeseburgers, I just
Right.
have these available, because they can see inside your home. They can then come in and say, oh, I'm here to fix your fireplace. And you're like, oh, sure. I didn't know my husband called you, but like, come in. Like, we're just inviting people to come see and getting to know our schedules. They can look online and just see how available we are. They know the names. Like, from stuff that I post, I'm so at fault of this, but from stuff that I post online, anyone can almost show up at my house and be like, oh, your daughter's name this and your husband, I know everybody. I'm part of your family because I know this and this and this. Let me just, and I'm set to like teach my daughter to make sure we're doing no secrets in the family, because I don't want any adult, no grandmas, no anybody saying, hey, we're gonna get ice cream, just don't tell your mommy. Like, no secrets at all, because I don't even want her to know what a secret is, because there's nothing she should keep from me until she's 15, 16 with her girlfriends, which has a crush on, like, whatever, all that. But I am so worried about all of the predatory stuff that happens online and in physical world, that I want to protect her from it. But then again, at the same time, I'm at fault because I'm, posting pictures of her. I'm posting all of this, and now I'm like, what do I do? I want to say like, let me unplug from everything, but I know that's not the realistic way to do it. So maybe just pulling it back and doing it in a healthy way of like, I don't know. What do you think?
I'm kind of taking the mean mommy approach because, like I said, I think I've realized it's way harder to undo damage than to not do the damage in the first place. So I don't post a lot of pictures of my kids online, although I have. Like you said, if somebody wanted to like figure out who my kids were, they probably could. And that's hard. I think that's hard on kids to not have any privacy growing up. They didn't choose that. Like, I want them to choose that for themselves someday and to not have like all these pictures and all this stuff about them online if they don't want that.
Yeah.
They don't have to choose that, right? We do have a choice. My sister's not on any social media pretty much. She was on Twitter for a while. I don't know if she got back on, but she really isn't on Facebook or anything like that. And her life has continued on. She's fine. So I also think about the fact that these companies on the other side of them, they see your children and they see you as a product. They
Yeah.
are constantly trying to find ways to advertise to you and use your information to advertise to other people. And it is such a
Yeah.
usury thing that's happening that I'm just not a fan of the whole system. And I also think there might come a day when God asks us to unplug, when he's like, it's time. It's time to go. And
Yeah.
you have to leave your technology behind. And we have to be able to live outside of technology. I just saw this story that just was awful. I just saw it right before I got on here. That this I can't remember, it was a man or a woman, disguised themselves basically as a 13-year-old and went into the metaverse basically, and was, I mean, immediately approached by men in the metaverse, talking about doing sexual things. There's like strip clubs and stuff you can go to in the metaverse. There's all
Or
this
there's
stuff you can do.
casinos.
There's, right, all this stuff, and a 13-year-old could have access to it. And it's like, what are we doing? What exactly are we doing? Because when you traumatize people, what you can end up doing is you can end up having control over their personalities. And so what we don't want is to voluntarily traumatize our children. Why would we do that? Why are we doing this? I have a big like call to parents. I say it every time I talk about it. Don't do this. You don't have to. You don't have to hand your 10-year-old an iPhone with access to the internet. You don't have to. You don't have to be the kid that exposes other children to pornography. That doesn't have to be your kid. We don't have to do this. We are choosing to do this, and we pay for it big time because iPhones are not cheap. And we are making that choice. But I grew up, my parents were super strict with me in ways that might not have been actually helpful. But they were.
It's hard to use that as a reference. It's always hard to they did
really
this way, but it didn't really work out.
No, but with technology, I'm fine with it. I don't look back and regret playing outside versus playing video games. I actually don't regret that. That's not part of my childhood I look back on and feel badly about. I actually look back on that part of my childhood fondly. I'm so glad that I played outside. I'm so glad that I climbed trees. I'm so glad that I rode my bike. I don't regret that. If you love your kids and you are kind and you educate them about what things are and you talk to them about why and you are open and honest with them, I really honestly believe they will survive just like I survived not having a bunch of technology around. It's not, a lot of people, well, don't they have to learn how to use it? Did you? When I was in college was finally when I first got access to an Apple computer. We all got apps and all of this garbage at what point? Like 5 years ago, 7 years ago? Was it hard to learn?
Yeah.
It wasn't hard to learn. I'm not worried about the education piece. I mean, let your kids use computers, let them learn how to use Word documents and type papers and do research, teach them how to do good research. That's important. But to just hand them access. I have a teacher that he talks about the internet being the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I think it is that modern day tree. I think what Adam and Eve ate was the good fruit, right? It looked good. It was delicious. It was the good part of it. It wasn't the bad fruit. And we look at the internet the same way. Well, there's so much good on there. They can learn so much. They can watch videos. But for all of this knowledge, are we smarter? Are we wiser? Are we better people? Are we less addicted? Are we more addicted? I would venture to say we're more addicted. And so the problem with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is it does not give you life. It can't give you life. And so no matter what side of that tree you're eating on, you are still eating from the tree that produces death in the long run. And so I just think we need to rethink this concept. Well, it's not really realistic to keep my kids from technology. Okay, I get that. My kids watch TV sometimes. Like, we've got shows. I don't have Netflix. I don't have a lot of stuff. But, we watch movies and stuff. Yeah. But what you're saying by saying that is I'm not willing to help my child not be traumatized. That's all I hear when parents are like, well, I let them have an iPhone, but I put like some guards on it. And you know how smart kids are. And it's like, I just think it's naive. I really believe that Christians need to pull out instead of pushing in and saying, we're going to influence this. No, you're not. There's a bias to these technologies that you didn't create. You didn't create the technology, so you don't get to dictate the bias of them. You're not going to change what the technology is used for. 33 trillion pornographic images last year online. Most of what people are doing online is something you don't approve of. So don't tell me you're going to go in and influence it. You probably aren't. You can use it as an adult. You can put the boundaries up, but your children, your children should be protected until they're smart enough to do the boundary themselves, which they're not at 9 and 10 and 11 and probably not 12 either. So I don't know. I'm a mean mommy.
No, I think that's good. I think it's important to create those boundaries, and it's hard. I with my daughter, I'm so dedicated about, like, we spend so much time outside, and I'm excited to get into the garden. I wanted to learn trees and fruits and like how do we grow things on our own. But then on the same time, I'm also like, I'm producing this like kids show entertainment YouTube channel for like kids to be able to learn words and like play and all of this. And then I'm like, because in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm gonna help kids or help moms to like find new activities to do with them, because we do all these activities and things and like the playtime. And my original goal is like to help moms to know how to spend time with their kids, because going online I saw all these posts of moms who didn't know what to do, and so I was like, maybe I'm helping. But then it's like, but then if I'm the arrow guiding them into the internet, is that helpful?
Well, I think shows like that, you know, I even think the platform you use really makes a difference, right? So if you were sending that video out to me and I was getting great ideas of some stuff to do with my kids, like there's nothing wrong with that, right? So
I
it
hope.
just it but if it's like godly, I mean, eventually YouTube's going to flag it, or they're not going to let you monetize or whatever. Or like, I have heard there was a woman I was listening to, and she does some of that. And she was having this problem with YouTube where they were putting advertising on those videos that she did not approve of. And she
Interesting.
was really upset about it. So she had to demonetize her videos. And she's like, I got to find a different route to do this. And so, again, what you're dealing with is the bias of the platform. The
Yeah.
bias of the algorithm is working against believers because they don't want you to educate in the ways of God, because I really believe God wants us to understand nature. Like you're talking about, get in the garden and learn what seeds are, because then you can understand Jesus' parables. If you don't do that, if you don't know how a garden works, you're not going to understand a lot of what Christ is talking about, right? And
Yeah.
so the Bible's very natural. It's very much about seeds and trees and plants and fields, and it's
Yeah.
all throughout Scripture. And if you're not outside, you're not going to learn it. If we're glued to our TVs, if we're glued to the screen all the time. But, I'm all for people using the technology to do good. I'm just not for handing the full version of that technology to our children when they're
Yeah.
young. I just don't think there's any way. I was sneaky. I used to sneak music my parents didn't want me to listen to. How I did that, how do you not catch
Yeah.
your kid listening to, what was I listening to? Nirvana. Like, how do you not catch your kid doing that? But they didn't. And it's like, we think we're somehow going to prevent our children from being traumatized by media while still handing them a phone.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
I don't
You're
want my
not.
daughter to
You're
have a
not.
phone at all. I just don't want her to like, I don't know. I'm not ready for her to have friends or kids or anything. I'm just like, don't leave me yet. We're best friends. We
Well,
hang
your
out
daughter's
all
really
the time. Yeah.
I'm the
But I'm
same.
not ready for it when she's older.
I'm the same way.
Maybe
I
okay.
don't let my kids spend the night. They don't get to spend the night at anybody's
I don't want her
house for
to.
those
I don't want her.
reasons. No.
Because I don't know what the other. I'm also, and I don't know if this is too much, but I'm gonna homeschool her, because I don't know what other kids are bringing to school. I don't know what other teachers are showing her. I don't know when somebody else in the classroom is gonna say, "Don't tell your mommy." Like, what is it that you have to tell my daughter that she can't tell me? If she can't tell me, it's inappropriate, and no words should be hitting her ears that are inappropriate in any way or form. And some people are like, well, then it's not, they're not going to get so socialized. I'm like, she's perfectly socialized. She knows how to talk to grown-ups. She knows how to talk to me. She knows how to talk to people. But her talking to her peers that I don't know what information they're getting in their homes, that's
Yeah.
going to be an issue for
It's
me,
true.
because
It's
she's going
true.
to learn things that I don't.
And that's,
I guess I'm a
that's
control
why.
freak. I'm trying to control my daughter.
No,
I'm
you're
trying to
smart
protect
because
her.
we're in a different culture now. I mean, and that's why I do talk to my kids about media. I've had very uncomfortable conversations with my 14-year-old that he didn't want to have. But I'm like, your friends are going to have stuff on their phones. They're going to have, and listen, I want you to know who these people are in these videos. What do you know about them? What happened to them? How did they get there? What's the
Yeah.
average lifespan of people who were involved in that sort of thing? Like all of that information. So he's armed. He understands it. He knows what it is. He knows what pornography is. I just don't want to give him a bunch of access to it. But I think you're right in having some qualms. I have a sister who was sexually abused by a neighbor's parent. And after that, like realizing, we don't really know people the way we used to anymore. It's not like we live in a small town and, if this guy does that to your kid, you're going to have a posse of men who go over and beat him up. Like, that's not happening anymore. There's no accountability. We don't know how many people are addicted to pornography around us. It's a high number. It's higher than we'd like to think. And I
Yeah.
think it's just smart to look out for your kids and be like, we don't, you know what? Maybe the next generation, we can move back. We can move away from these issues, so people can trust each other again, because it's not a trustworthy space out there right now. And I feel bad. I
Yeah.
feel, families are struggling. It's hard.
I see that day in and day out. I was actually abused by family, and because it's so close, and my mom didn't know for the longest time. I just recently told her a couple of years ago. Uh, it made me think of like, and maybe again, and maybe it's my trauma and my own stuff that I'm passing down to my daughter that I'm hoping not to do. But because of that, I don't trust even other family members, because I don't know what's going on at an aunt uncle's house. I don't know what's going on when at a grandpa. Like, I just don't know. Everyone, it's those stories. It's the stories you see on TV where it's like, I had no idea he was a perfectly great neighbor, because like that's just what we see. We think everyone's this perfect, but what we don't know is what they do at night. That they could be stalking and being creepy or use images for different things. Like, I just don't know, and I don't want what happened to me to happen to I don't want it to happen to anybody, because it has such lifelong, consequences of how things I like consider and still think about, or how even now how I parent, it's obviously still affecting me. And so when people, I think because it's such a gross subject, because it's so icky, we don't talk about it enough, and so we think it's not that big of a deal. Or if it's never happened to you, you could say like, oh, it doesn't happen that often. But once I started opening up more about it, more and more people started coming to me and saying, hey, this also happened to me. This also happened to somebody I know. It happens so much more often than we even try to look into and try to see how many people are affected by it daily. And that was one of the things I struggled with the pandemic. It's like we're asking people to get locked in with somebody that might be a predator.
Right.
Because maybe going to school or going to work was their only escape, and now they're locked in.
And that happened to people. And I feel like to, as hard as it is, we as believers have a responsibility to not be raising future predators. And I think one of the most important pieces of not traumatizing your children in technology is actually for their future, to make sure that they're not taken advantage of, number one, by someone else, or that they don't become that predator, because that is usually the route. That is the door, that's the door into that behavior. When you look at statistics of men who are predatory or that rape or that abuse children, they all use pornography. And they are all, it is like so many of them are addicted to porn. And people don't understand like how the media has been the gateway into so many of these behaviors. I know those behaviors have always existed, but I get the sense, just the same thing. The more women I talk to, the more young girls I talk to, the stuff that women have been through, the stuff that children are not, like the number of people who have been sexually abused is astonishing to me. And you go, it's probably worse than it's ever been now.
Yeah, and that's of people that we actually know. And then there are still so many who haven't said anything about it, whether they're embarrassed, they're keeping it secret, they don't want things to come up, they're worried, whatever the reason might be. A lot of people actually don't even talk about it. So the number, which is already so huge, is just of the people that we actually know, because they were brave enough to step forward, say something, whatever it might be. I was also thinking, when you break it down like that, it really makes sense, because when you talk about when kids grow up, they mimic their parents. So if you have like an abusive relationship at home, they're more likely to see that. So let's say if your family's not abusive, if you're exposing your kids to that murder show, that abusive behavior, that rape scene, whatever it might be, kids are just taking it all in, and they think it's normal. And because it's on TV, why wouldn't it be normal? If other people can film it and view it for entertainment and it is enjoyed, and then if you're not even making the connection, you're like, oh, well, that's a celebrity, so maybe this is the way to then become cool and get this validation if I was to act this way. And so instead of nurturing the good wolf that's inside, we're feeding this bad wolf and saying, hey, these are the things to get you attention, to get you what you
Right.
want, to get
You're
whatever it might
planting a
be.
seed, yeah. You're
Planting the wrong
normalizing, yeah.
seed.
You're
Yeah.
planting a seed and normalizing, um, making it seem normal that those things happen, and maybe they are more normal now just because of what we've talked about, but, um, again, there's a bias, I mean, I hate to, like, go all the way to, like, I think it's demonic, but I think so
I
much of
think it
media is
is.
demonic.
I
It
think it
really
is.
it is not,
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially
It's
with,
not
I
human.
think you see it more with the music videos that have recently come out and all of that. I mean, it's just like right there in your face. No one's even hiding it anymore. No one's even like trying. But because we got so used to seeing those people as the role models and people we look up to, like you said, it's normalized. So it's like, oh, well, no one's closing their eyes at this. They're still looking. So if you
Right,
can look, it's probably all right. If you, no one's saying close your eyes, nothing's bad about it. So you want to
right.
repeat the behavior. You think it's all right to do it. You think, I mean, there's so many different things to think about, but I think, especially everyone, not everyone, don't want to say that, but a lot of people I came from Hollywood. I was in LA for a long time. I did some movies, I did some shows, I was in some sketchy situations. I think God really, really, really protected me. I was really naive to a lot of things. And when my eyes were open, when I got married, and when I saw things for the truth, when I look back at certain events that happened to me, I don't know how I survived certain things. Like,
Mm,
I am so blessed, and I have so many
mm,
guardian angels who protected me. There's been so many, not so many, there's been so many instances, but a handful of situations that now that I know things, when I look back, I'm like, I was saved by
mm,
whatever things happened. That I now look, I'm like, I was literally saved.
mm,
A spirit literally took my hand and took me out of a room one time. Like, I had a physical reaction once that saved me. I know
mm,
I was going to be raped. I know it was by a director. He was casting as well. He's like, we're going to do all this. And I was still new. So I was like, oh my gosh, I was excited. And he locked the door. He asked the casting director to leave, and he locked the door. And it was like a sex scene. Like, he wanted, and I was like, my body stopped. You know, when you think about those situations, you're like, oh, I'm going to be able to run. I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll be so brave. And then when it's happening, you just almost shut down. I escaped. There's been a multiple
mm.
other ones, but
Wow.
you kind of just blame it on, maybe almost kind of saying like, well, maybe it just happened to me. Maybe that person's bad. But then once you find out the real truth about Hollywood and everything that's happening there, it's like were only baby steps to things that really are going on. And again,
And you think
nothing
those are
but
the people
God saved
making
me.
this material. So again, there's your bias, right?
Yeah.
There are people who are justifying their own worldview, their own behavior, probably don't have any problem. There was those shows that came up on Netflix that were sexualizing children, and
Yeah, we
you're like,
canceled that for that too.
why would you make that? Like, in
Yeah.
the process of doing that, aren't you thinking about what you're making? And you
From the
realize, oh
whole
no, this is
thing. It's like, you guys had tryouts. They're like, well, we had 3,000 girls that I was like, you had 3,000 girls do this?
right, right.
And then the
So
100, and then the 4 that made it, and then you filmed
right,
it over and over and over again, and then you edited it, and then you went through, like, there were so many
right.
people who were involved. And they're making these girls think they're stars, that they're doing this, and so they don't even know the trauma that they're causing. And then other girls are looking up at them saying, oh my gosh, I want to be just like that.
Exactly, because it's fame, and we're worshiping the wrong things. So again, we think we need technology, but like, if you were looking a predator in the eye, you wouldn't let your child stay in the room. So
Yeah.
why are we letting these people educate our kids? Why are we
Yeah.
letting them indoctrinate our kids? I think I really, my son had this amazing moment with the Lord a couple weeks ago that I had been waiting and hoping he would have. He needed it. And after he prayed this incredible prayer, um, of just repentance, he had this vision that he shared with me that God gave him in that moment. One of the things that came out of the vision, and he said it to me, I'm usually the one telling him this, But he said it to me so clearly. He said, we have to get people off of technology. Satan is using this. This is Satan's tool.
Wow. I get
And
chills.
yeah, and I was like, what? I was looking at him, I was like, buddy, do you understand?
What you're
Like,
saying? Yeah.
how long I've been trying to tell you this? We fight over technology, and he, but he just said it straight up. He said, I want to tell teenagers, I want to tell people.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I'm trying to work with him to kind of help him come up with a good little 5-minute spiel he can give and talk about
I
that.
love that.
But I think the people on the other side of this technology, they don't care about you and your kids.
They're just using you for numbers, for data, for things they want to get approved, to change
They're
laws,
getting
to
you
change
addicted
things.
so that you are their customer for life.
Users.
Yeah.
We're users.
We're
Users are meth users, drug users. We are internet users. We are social media users. We are all addicted and we are users.
Right.
It's gross.
It is, but
gross.
it's our responsibility as parents.
But it's not going away, yeah.
Yeah, to understand that, to educate our children, but to keep them from things like, we don't let our 9-year-olds drive cars for a reason, right? You should not let your kid do things that are age inappropriate, right? And we're the generation that has to do this because we're the ones that actually understand technology. Our parents kind of dropped the ball, I feel like.
I don't think they were ready for what was going to hit them.
No.
I don't think they know the power of it, honestly. And I don't know if they'll really, truly comprehend it ever, of what goes behind the scenes, of what it takes to gather all this information, to what it actually does, where it is it used. It's hard. It's hard to think about because but we have to think about it.
Yeah.
I think we have to start the conversation. That's where we started the podcast, is like, well, how do we have those conversations? How do we start the awareness and talking about these things? This is how we do it, is that having these conversations to let people know this is what's going on right now. This isn't like, hey, 10 years from now, whatever. Like, it's happening, and it's happening aggressively.
It's happening now. And I think, just to plug moms, I feel like stay-at-home moms, I'm a homeschool mom myself now this year. Motherhood has been so degraded also in our culture, and we've just thrown it out. Like, if you want to be a mom, that is not interesting to people and nobody cares about it. But I have to tell you, I care. I think it's the most important job you're ever going to have. I think good mothers are lifesavers. They are going to save the world. And I think we have to encourage great fathers, but I really do believe the push to do better with technology is going to come from moms. We are the ones who, even the way women's eyes work are different than men's, right? We pick up more facial expressions. We pick up more in a room. We have that intuition for a reason. We need to be using that, and we need to be looking around the room at our kids and knowing them that well and understanding what's age appropriate and taking the reins, like taking the bull by the horn. I don't care who in this house is addicted to porn at this point. If you are, we're throwing the computer out. We are done. We're not doing it anymore. And I just feel like that's going to come from moms.
Yeah. We're the boss of the family. Like, of course, the dad is the head of the household. But when it comes to, I think, parenting and making sure the family stays together, I think it's a woman's role to step in and say, these are my children and I will protect them.
That's right. Yeah.
And it comes with social media.
It's so important. Moms are so great. I love moms. And I hope, if we raise our children right, I want to have a lot of grandchildren. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I need to have more kids. I want lots. Raise our children right, and then they become great parents too, hopefully.
Yeah. No, it's true. Rachel, I love talking to you. I have to get to my daughter, but if at all you would ever want to be on my podcast again, I would love to have, I just love talking to you. I think you're so insightful. I think I get ideas. I want to share more of this. I want to share more of your motherhood, more of the Bible stuff, whatever it is that if you ever want to talk to me, I'd love to have you on again, because I love your voice. I actually really love your actual physical voice, which I told you at the beginning, but I love the things that you say and how you carry them, because they come from your heart, but I know it's God speaking through you, and I want more of it.
Well, thank you. I feel exactly the same. This was a blast. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. I'm going to shoot you an email after, but thank you for being on and taking the time. And I love all the things that you mentioned. I feel like now I want to take the day off to just like sit with it. I want to talk to God. Like I want to have my own personal Sabbath of like keep showing me the right path, God. Like show me, help me serve my family better, serve myself better, serve God better, serve moms better. Like I want to fully surrender and give God the full reins of what is it that I'm supposed to do? What is the big plan? Instead of focusing on my plan and trying to do things and these little minuscule things, which do matter because within my family, my world, those are important. But I know God's got a big plan for me, and I think the things that it never worked out because I'm like I know it's for a reason, even though it's hard to look at it sometimes. But like I want to dive into it more and see where my place is in this bigger puzzle because he's looking at this big puzzle and it's this beautiful picture, but I'm looking at my own puzzle, the small thing where I'm like I don't even know where I fit. I'm just a small puzzle piece.
Well, you're doing good
You've
work.
inspired me. It's inspired me a lot.
Good work.
Thank
Well,
you.
you inspired me. I love this. I love this. This is so good. And thank you for serving moms. I think that is so wonderful and important. And just, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to meet other parents out there that love their kids that way and that are putting that role, like servant of God and mom, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know I love my husband. I do. I mean, and you got to have that marital relationship first, but motherhood is such a distinct and unique role, and you are changing the world as a mom. And so I think the more we can serve moms and help moms, the better. The more that we can bring stuff up to help moms think through their own decisions, think through how you're going to deal with the stuff in your family. Don't just let it slide. Don't just do what everybody else is doing. Go to the Lord and ask him how to map this out and how to plan this and how to speak it into your family's life because it will change your life, how you approach these things. And moms are powerful and they get to have that voice. And so take it, right?
Yeah, I want moms to have confidence. I want because it's like you said, they seem to be like degraded. Like it's a terrible thing to be, but like it's so important. You literally are changing the world. You're shaping how the next generation will interact with one another, treat one another, share things with one another. And there's so much that goes into it. And it's such a big responsibility and an honor. It's an honor to raise another human being to say, "Hey, I'm gonna help you learn things until you're ready to be on your own." Right. And it's. I want moms to have confidence to have an opinion, not to just take someone else's words from a TV show or whatever, but to have an opinion and stick by it and have a strong spine to say, hey, this is the way we're going to do this in our home because I am your mother, I'm your guardian, and I will protect you, and this is my way of doing it.
Right. Absolutely.
I have so much love and admiration for you. I'm really such a fan right now.
Oh,
I'm such a big fan
of
yours. All right, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let you go and close this up, but I would, if you are at all willing, I'd love to have you on again.
Let's do it again. I love it.
Yay!
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for being on, and I will see you next time on Mom Your Own Way. Bye.